Hello everyone. Bug in the eye. Hello everyone, thanks for coming outside me today. As you can see, I've just stepped onto this piece of public here. Got a couple of trail cameras way a ways here from the parking lot that I've kind of been leaving soak for a while. Kind of want to check them in. We got about a month, a little less than a month here to the Pennsylvania archery season, first week of October. Hello, hello. Hey, how are you? How are you today? Yeah, how are you today, huh? You're a good dog. You like walking up here instead of the road. It's public land. Guy with his dog out walking. What do you expect? So anyway, I'm out here to check some trail cameras, take you out here with me, testing out and continuing to work with some gear. I got the new Lodi backpack from Huntworth. Really impressed and pleased with this pack, and I'll probably have a whole separate video about it. But that's not what I'm out here today. I'm out here today to talk about some of the things that are recently, right before season, kind of grinding my gear. So let's kind of vlog a little bit and come around, and hopefully the wind noise with the microphone isn't too bad today. So I just got off the four-wheeler trail here, about to, still got probably another half mile of just walking through timber to get to my first camera up here. Hopefully, it's been soaking for about 2 months. Hopefully got some good pictures. But the first thing, I don't know why recently, it always comes out every year, it always does, but more in particular is the industry. You know, the industry's out to get us. The industry's only concerned about making money. The industry's only concerned about selling speed or selling mechanical broadheads. And as someone who doesn't actually work for the industry, but works around a lot of people, meets a lot of people face to face that directly work in the industry, particularly a lot of people like Mike Somm over at Magnus, who's been making broadheads since the 80s. You know, they've been doing this a very long time. They're interested in their customer base, right? And they're interested in selling the best products they can to as many people as possible. You know, that's what we're all doing, right? It doesn't matter if you sell life insurance or you sell arrows. You're trying to give the best product you can to the most amount of people at the best price margin possible. And that's whether you turn out 10,000 broadheads or 100,000 broadheads or arrows or whatever it may be. I see a bug on the lens. Get off of there. I've been seeing a lot of comments recently on my own YouTube channel, but as well as Facebook pages, Archery Talk, that type of stuff, that the industry's out to sell speed. The industry is out to make things better. I don't understand. Like, if you did not bow hunt in the early 2000s, like 2005 to 2010, and now you see the bows of today, then, in particularly if you've been bow hunting since compounds came around in the 70s, 80s, 90s, you really have no idea what you're talking about. Bows used to be terrible. I mean, I'm just thinking back to 2005 when I started, 2006 when I started really getting into bow hunting. I was shooting a Hoyt X-Tech, which was still a D-shaped bow. The hand shock was terrible. It didn't even have a string stop, right? So now here we are 15 years later, and of course bows are more efficient and they have gotten faster, significantly faster than those days. I mean, most bows are in the 315s to 320s. If they claimed 340, they were nowhere near close. Now, granted, a lot of bows still are that way today, but you know, you have to sell some sort of thing, right? And speed is harmless, right? Because most of us, as we know, all are in that 250 to 290 range with a hunting arrow. So stop barking about the speed. It's just starting to upset me. And even more recently, people really be getting upset about it, but they're forgetting that now the compound world in particular, trad bows have been trad bows, but compound world in particular is now competing with crossbows. Right? And crossbow companies are not compound companies, right? So I like to shoot elite bows, but Elite doesn't make a compound crossbow. Matthews doesn't make a crossbow. They make Mission, and they make the Mission Sub 1, but Matthews itself doesn't. Diamond doesn't make a crossbow, right? So the crossbow sales are competing directly with compound sales now, here in the 2020s. Here in Pennsylvania, crossbows became legalized for everybody in around the 2010 range. So that means over the past decade, compounds have slowly, the gap has started to gradually get bigger and bigger between compounds and crossbows, in particular when it comes to the price point. So now the only thing compounds really have left is a whole lot of adjustability. You know, you can have a wide poundage of weight, you have a big rotating maw and a cam to allow anybody to use that bow, because that's what a crossbow offers you. Now, I'm not against selling you a crossbow. If you want to buy a crossbow, that's your own decision. Now, I have videos on me saying maybe you should, you know, man up a little bit, in particular in some situations. And so the compound industry is competing with 400, 440, 470, 500 feet a second. Right, so this thing that only compounds used to have over trad bows is now being taken over by crossbows, compound crossbows. So really keep that in mind when you're looking at the industry. A lot of them are people that have been doing this for 20, 30, 40 years. A lot of them are interested in that bell curve system, right? What's the most amount of people that are gonna buy my product in this particular window, right? For example, right? I have a cheap smartphone. It's a cheap $300, $250, $300 Motorola smartphone, because that's all I need, right? I fit in that bell curve for the Motorola buyers. If you're an iPhone user, they know what prices they can get away with in their bell curve. It's the same thing for every manufacturer of every product around the world, not just the archery industry. Stop bashing on them. They're doing their best. I mean, granted, I don't work for anybody, but it's just kind of frustrating because we don't complain about couches, we don't complain about car sales, we don't complain about our phones or our computers, but we love to complain about archery. Don't get it. And going along with this whole chase and speed thing, right? Everybody seems to be very uninterested about chasing speed, and then they want to start shooting long distances. And I'm sorry, but in the realm of archery, those two things go very much hand in hand. I'm sure we're all seeing things that are coming about recently, you know, shooting a particular arrow style or a bow poundage to get you to reach out to 50, 60, 70 yards effectively and lethally, and that's all well and good. But the issue is if you're setting an arrow off at 250 feet a second, and you're hoping and praying to God that you hit the small area of a vital of a whitetail, pronghorn, or, you know, elk are pretty big, but, you know, they can only get so big, right? If you think you're hitting those spots at 60 yards without the animal moving, and you make a great shot, every deer I've ever shot has moved. If you go and watch, I'll put some links in the description below to a whole bunch of different kills of whitetails that are under 30 yards. Recently, I'll throw a shout out to these guys, the Everyday Outdoorsman, which used to be Pennsylvania Outdoors Unlimited, right here in my home state. Grant and Brandon and a whole bunch of other guys are killing whitetails on camera every single year, guns and bows. And they just posted a video of like 30 kill shots in 3 minutes or whatever. Every single deer, if you slow it down, use your, if you go and use the period symbol on your keyboard, like pause the YouTube video, it'll go frame by frame. And most people shoot in 24 or 30 frames a second. So you can break down each second into 24 individual frames. Go hit that period key and watch. There's actually, and I'll put a link in the description to the specific timestamp that I'm talking about. Brandon, I think, shoots a doe at like 12 yards with a normal compound arrow, you know, probably in the 450s to 475 grain weight, 60 pounds, 30-inch draw. He's a big guy just like me, so he's getting a lot of speed out of his bow. And that doe is already moving at the arrow's like 8-yard mark. So what are you gonna do at 60? Right? What are you going to do when that whitetail moves at 60 yards or 50 yards or 40 yards? There's a reason that nearly everybody on this planet, I'd say 90% of whitetail hunters, are taking shots 30 yards and in, because that whitetail is going to move on you. I quite frankly have no idea why we're getting all fired up over like 50, 60, 70 yard shots. First of all, there's very few people I know personally that can actually make that shot, like actually put it into the vitals. And then there's even fewer that could do it with a speed setup that if you misjudge the distance, well, that's a whole different conversation. So when we always bark about the out west guys, of course they're out there. Oh my gosh. Out west guys killing elk and pronghorn and mule deer and whitetails with a bow every year at pretty good distances. But it's a very small subset, incredibly small subset of the population of bow hunters in the United States. The vast majority of us, I would be willing to wager 90% of us, are east of the Mississippi River. I don't care what public land you go on in Pennsylvania, everything is uphill both ways. But this is what I'm trying to get at as I catch my breath. You have people complaining about the industry trying to sell speed, but then they've never shot at an animal with a 250 feet per second bow at launch. 250 feet per second bow at launch. That animal, if it's a whitetail in particular, past 40 yards, is gonna have the time to turn around, eat a sandwich, and still get out of the way before it even gets there. And that's more of a truly indicative speed. Most people are between the 27.5 to 29.5 inch draw length. Remember, I'm working on people's bows year round, particularly this time of year. These guys are coming in, they want a normal arrow, a normal setup, and it's about a 70-30 split, guys who want to shoot a mechanical versus a fixed blade. Although that's been getting better. But like I've always said, structural integrity, perfect arrow flight, and a fixed blade broadhead solve 90% of your problems. Not FOC, not weight, not how fast the arrow is going. Those things are what solve it. And pardon the pun, but to further compound the issue is then you have people that have no idea how to judge distance. Now this isn't like the known versus unknown. Ooh, we have an acorn here. I'm assuming it's a red from this red guy right here. That's a big acorn from this red right here. but I'm interested in whites. That's where we're headed to. Big white oak flat with the camera in it. The number of dudes though that I shoot, just, you know, y'all come 3D courses, bow hunting distances, that have to use a rangefinder and still can't hit exactly what they're aiming at. They're good hunters that kill deer every single year. But if you can't judge a whitetail at 25 yards, how are you going to know the difference between 47 and 52 with an arrow going 260 feet a second at launch? Not trying to hurt your feelings. Just trying to warn you. I know a lot of guys that they're off, myself included. My hunting arrow right now is probably going about 275, 280 at launch. And the difference of 5 yards after 25 yards just starts getting worse and worse and worse. And this is what people don't understand because they've never actually done it. Sure, they can go out in their backyard, rangefinder, click, click, 52, drop it right in. But now you got a whitetail, particularly if you're hunting in timber, right? This is the deal. Like these guys, oh, it's out west, it's wide open, you can range them. Not in here, you can't. And considering that, again, I'm wagering 80 to 90% of bow hunters hunt in areas like this, or brushy field edges, bedding areas, mountain laurel, hardwood timber. You got to be able to judge yardage. You have to, because there are going to be times you step into an area like this and you're like, okay, I think that deer, when that deer comes out, which a lot of time it surprises us because we're too busy playing on our phones or something, comes out and we think we ranged it, we accidentally ranged a tree or the sapling or the leaf, or it's foggy and your rangefinder's not working right. You have to be able to judge distance, something. I mean, I'm not saying you have to be Levi Morgan and Danny McCarthy, because I am definitely not. But I can look at a target, a whitetail sized target, and know the difference between 22 and 25, because that could be huge. If you aim for 22 and you're shooting 250 feet a second, you aim for 22, or 25, excuse me, and it turns out it's 22, and that deer's moving, because they all do, that deer is moving, now you spined it, right? Because now your trajectory is crap because you're shooting so slow, and your point of impact, because most people, again, are not shooting 270, 280 feet a second with a super heavy setup. Most guys are getting 250, 260. Now, if you're a freak like me, you can shoot whatever you want, but guys like me, 6'4", 31-inch draw length, we're an oddity, not the norm. And speaking of trying to get arrows to fly right, let's talk about tuning for a hot second. Most people that come into the shop, again, I'm in Pennsylvania, one of the highest archery hunting states in the country. Most guys have never tuned anything. They've never shot through paper, they've never group tuned, they never walk back tuned. They just, as a lot of guys like to say, the shop set it up for me. And they shoot what they've been doing. They shoot with what they've been working with. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But then they're like, you know what? I've had poor penetration because they haven't tuned their setup. Probably over mechanical themselves with certain type of broadhead, shooting like a 2-inch broadhead. Lighter arrow, you know, they're underspined, right? This happens a lot too. Guys that are like 2970 in terms of specs are shooting like a 400 spine arrow. That is a shop's fault for setting you up with an arrow that light. But most guys, like I said, are shooting between like 410, 475 and getting really good results. My camera's right down here. Just pulled this card out of a camera over here. This is a strange piece of public. The only way to access this spot where I'm at, you could possibly hear the road over the wind noise of the microphone behind me. The only way to access this corner is to go all the way from the other corner to get all the way through here. You can't, there's just a really big high wall, you can't park there. So even though this is like, I gotta be less than 70 yards, 60 yards from a very major road over here, the only way I can get here is through the timber. But anyway, getting back to what I was saying about tuning and arrow weights and trying different types of things, is that a lot of these guys have never tuned anything before. So they'll go and they'll try to tune a arrow that, you know, is on the other one end of the bell curve. You know, they'll tune a really light 3D arrow, a really heavy hunting arrow, and they won't have the success, right? They see like all these guys that have been tuning for a while, such as myself, Brandon McDonald, Troy Fowler, all those guys. And they're like, why can't I get that type of tuning? It's like, well, you've never tuned anything before in the past, right? You have to walk before you can run. You have to ride a bike before you can drive a car, you know, that type of stuff. Whole steaming pile of nothing. Oh, that's what I was afraid of. That's why I'm moving this camera, I have one picture of a fox. I had a couple pictures of some halfway decent deer coming down in here. But going back to what I was saying about that arrow is, you know, if you're going to build an arrow and you're going to try to tune it, you might want to try to tune something that the industry, the horrible industry, expects you to try first. And if you can get that to tune, you can pretty much work with just about anything. But if you can't get a bell curve style arrow to tune, you probably have an issue with your bow, you have an issue with your grip, your form, that type of stuff. And that's a lot easier to try to figure out with the arrows that you haven't put a lot of money into, because, you know, building heavy or light arrows, 3D arrows are definitely not cheap, and the super heavy, more boutique style stuff is not cheap either. And so it's a lot nicer to know that you can kind of build a middle of the road arrow, make it work out really well for you, and that tuning and the speed and everything just becomes a non-factor. Well, anyways, I've rambled on long enough. I'm gonna pack up. I got some other stuff to do, hang this camera, do a little bit more scouting. But I appreciate you letting me ramble, get a little bit of that off my chest. And if you feel like I'm completely in left field, drop a comment down below that probably tells me so. You're probably already doing that. But if you do have a question for me about getting outside, enjoy the sport of archery, archery hunting, tuning arrows, working on bows, whatever it may be, do follow the links in the description below. You can send me an email at any time, averagejackarchery@gmail.com, or hit me up on Facebook or Instagram, averageJackArchery. I get back to everybody unless it's complete spam. I get back to everybody and try to be as helpful as I can to solve and troubleshoot any problem that you may have, whether it's scouting, getting your bow to work, or an arrow to fly right. Hope you're able to get outside, enjoy the sport of archery, archery hunting if you so choose. Definitely enjoy God's beautiful creation. We're getting close to season, and we'll get to see you next time.